So, good afternoon, everybody. My fellow panelists, Amulya, Sarita, Rupali, and Chela Pandyan, welcome to this session. Today, our topic is diversity and inclusion in talent acquisition. As you know that last 10 years, the DEI is actually the not just an issue of the organization, it's the issue of social system and culture, and also the bringing the right talent also to the organization. Here I want to just bring one of my experience yesterday happened where I'm coming by train. Couple of CEOs were sitting. One CEO recently started startup. He was telling me, sir, I'm taking a lot of talent from IITs and NITs. They're not staying back. It's a robotic company. Another CEO, actually COO, he was actually there in this another robotic company. He's there. He knows the talent. Then I started giving the first company name. They want to build food cooking robot. So that guy was actually telling me the experience, sir, I'm not able to retain the talent, not getting the talent, this is the problem. So I told them, did you try it in this way? Have you gone to the organizations? First year onwards, did you sow the seeds of coming to your organization? I never did, sir. I'm depending upon HR consultant. They are giving the average talent, and after that, 1-2 months, I'm finding the talent. So this is where our panelist today is going to share their experience, a lot of diversity, inclusion, and equity experiences, how they explored in talent acquisition, and how these challenges can be resolved, how you can drive the both HR and business performance positively to the organization. So I start with the first person, head DI, Mr. Chela Pandyan. It is the only organization where DI directly reports to chairman, Kiran Majumdar. So he is going to share some of his experiences. How the D is very important to your organization. In your experience, how you have driven that DEI.
Great. Thank you. And my name is Challapandyan Pichai, and I'm not connected to Sundar Pichai. And I've sent him a LinkedIn note. He's not accepted yet. Because a lot of people asked, are you connected? So the DEI is no more good to have. And there are times a lot of people thought it is a good to have. It's for optics, right? So it allows you to get into ESG, because ESG demands for certain societal in which DEI plays a role. But what's important for business, at least for our company, I represent Biocon Biologics, which is part of Biocon Group. DEI is deeply woven into the fabric of our culture. And when I say this, the proof is in the pudding, right? So we had 50-50 in 90s and 2000s when we didn't have a DEI as a company. Probably because it flows from chairperson Kiran herself, because she's very passionate about bringing an equal workforce or a balanced leadership. But over a period of time, it's not same today. It has diluted because the company is exponentially growing. But now we have a dedicated DEI function. It is not sharing with other functions. It's fully only for diversity, equity, inclusion. And our focus is more on how do you bring that governance and the policies and make sure there is lot of things that are happening to enable the company to the next level of growth. So to your question, why it is important, why it is no more optics or good to have, because it has a component called 3 Ps, I call it as, it has direct effect on the productivity, profitability, and performance, which somewhere we are blinded to that. And when you experience, you see it's a business case and it is not a HR thing that we have a DEI there. And enough research is done in many other countries, if not in our country, to prove that it has a direct impact on these 3 Ps. So from Biocon Biologics, we understand that. And the second thing what we do is we have a top-down approach, because anytime in any organization, if a DEI is from the bottoms up or from the middle struggle, it won't reach where you want to reach with the DEI. You won't get this 3P connected to the diversity, equity, inclusion. It has to be from the top. So what we have done is today in our leaders' goals, it sits in KRAs. It took 3 years for us to get to that kind of a maturity. it's no more the DEI team is driving this. We only enable leaders. The leaders are driving. It is an organization focus. And if you take the top 20 goals of the company for the next 5 years, DEI sits there in the top 5. It's no more, it's a focus of individual function. So I'll stop there and I'll add more later.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful insight. Amulya. Amulya comes from Log9 Material. She worked previously with Intel and other, she works with a company called Semiconductor and some battery company. So what is your experience about DEI? How you are driving your organization?
So I'm here representing Log9 today. So Log9 is into the EV sector. So we make battery packs that help electrify India and contribute to sustainability as a goal. So for us, DEI has even a larger cause beyond gender, representation, race, sections of the society. It goes all the way to sustainability to say, are we being inclusive across as a human being on planet Earth? While this is a paradigm shift that we have seen in large organizations as part of my tenure, what is interesting is even startups have a similar mental model when it comes to DEI, right? This is no more a piece where certain organizations with a certain level of maturity have been able to engrave this as part of their objectives, but it is a very core fabric of every working organization, because at the end of the day, when you look at your working population, it's Gen Z. The talent that you will end up attracting specifically in newer sectors, newer businesses, finding new potential customers is going to be Gen Z. And for them, what matters is, do I belong to a place that I work in? So for them, inclusion stands as a very key pillar, and it's all about bringing their authentic self to work. And as an organization, we need to be ensuring that we're able to enable that. So it's not about making those statements to say, hey, you get this benefit, that benefit, but it's about providing that conducive work environment, those practices, those policies, retweaking them, being open to feedback so that everyone is able to bring themselves and contribute to the 3 Ps that you just mentioned. So for us, inclusion stands at the core of it, and everything follows, and I'll add more as we go by.
Thank you, Amulya. Sarita Mohanty, he heads Acuity Foundation group of institutions where she heads medical colleges and hospitals. What is your experience in education and especially hospital sector?
Yeah, thank you. So, as a heading group of institutes inclusive of medical college and being instrumental for 2 startups, new medical colleges in completely different locations, what my experience that we all are aware of what is exactly diversity, getting and appreciating and recruiting people across gender, religion, social status, economical status, and very recently added marital status also. So while recruiting and focusing on diversity, inclusion is how we welcome them, how we appreciate those people while they already joined us and started working with us. So as sir asked how we have practiced, I started within my team and as well interacting with my C-level executives and management and top management. So what I feel, if there is pure human approach, because HR, talent acquisition, everything is all about human approach. Yes, artificial intelligence is supportive, but this approach makes people welcome, adopt them in system and make them productive. So what I feel, the diversity slate approach, that is at least recruiting one person of a different gender, different religion in each of our own team, even in HR, that will definitely help, and that has helped me also in all these, working with group of institutes. And second thing, what is helpful is, searching blind CVs, which is always an international approach, but now here also we have practicing. So that is also very helpful. And what I'll say, because we belong to India, the great, rich and heritage. So what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that, Sarbatra Samadarshana, this is what diversity and inclusion. If you can see, you can feel all are equal and respect them, that is always helps HR, management, colleagues, everybody to, develop this diversity and inclusion. So what, as a person I feel, when we all, give our people this spiritual training, this, getting social skills developed, having a lot, we always nowadays speaking about soft skill, but added to that, this spirituality, definitely it will help us more. And while working with, doctors and many at times, not only NABH, NABL, this National Medical Commission demanding a lot many recruitments in very short time, I myself also get biased, and my management also, because there is a pressure and you have to go through that. But even if in those conditions, if we can, get focused and think people alike, then definitely it will help all, and it has already helped me, and I'm trying to, implement more in my organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarita. Now, Rupali C. Rane is a head of Nova IVF, head HR. She shares her experiences.
Yeah. Hi all, audible? Okay. I had HR for Nova IVF and also HR operations for Motherhood brand. And both our brands are very well known, and we work in an industry which belongs to fertility and a good news, let's put it that way. And for us DI, we do not need a separate policy, because you get into any hospital or any clinic of us today, you will see more women, because naturally we are a caring business, right? We are in a business of happiness, and there the women actually do make a mark. And I look at this DEI more as a DIB, so diversity being, and this is something I borrowed. When someone calls you for the party, it is bringing diverse people. Inclusion is getting called on a dais for dancing. And B is sense of belongingness, where you dance as if no one is watching. And I think that is where the whole industry is going. And inclusion, I feel, and coming back to Mr. Ramchandra, the topic that we are talking about is how do we implement DEI in a talent acquisition? That becomes extremely critical for us. For us, the bigger challenge as an industry was to having our say in the leadership position. Yes, 80% of bottoms up were women. Today we are at 68%, both the organizations, whether it's Motherhood or Nova. But how to bring these women into leadership position was a challenge, and how we did it, I will eventually speak about it. And thank you, wonderful representing my both organizations over here. Thanks, Mr. Ram.
Next is actually share some of the best practices that you had, and how it is enabling the business performance.
Great. There are quite a few. I get excited if I have to answer this, but in the interest of time and so many speakers for a different perspectives, there is also inclusion, right? So I'll keep 3 important points which helped us, and that could be some of the best practice sharing. One, there needs to be an ecosystem for diversity, equity, inclusion. The ecosystem, it's a 360-degree approach, I call it as, whilst focuses on employees and the different functions which enables diversity and inclusion in the organization. The suppliers, so recently we had a supplier diversity forum. We invited all our suppliers and we spoke to them, and we offered them sensitization workshops and enable them so that and then we wanted to reward them as well. So one is that. Then of course, second, your patients, the doctors, and so how do we work with the customers and see if they have enough diversity, and then is that something we can do? This is an offer to them. Then your potential employees are the Gen Zs who are sitting in colleges and school. So we have something called bench to board. Bench is school bench and board is the corporate board. So how do you create an ecosystem for a balanced workforce? It has to begin there, right? So as Rupali said, and I think even all of them touched upon biases. The biases begins at home, then it goes into society, education, and to the organization. So how do you create that awareness in the entire ecosystem is very important. Second, the DEI sitting in KRAs, as I said, which really enables because leaders want it. And because managers, people managers start feeling the importance of that because it helps them in their productivity. So why would any manager, any people manager, any business manager, why would they don't want a productivity? And if they know DI can play a role, whatever percentage, it's 2%, 5% of productivity can go up by diversity and inclusion, so they will adopt that, right? Similarly, the third area where I see as a best practice which can be adopted is in terms of the unconscious bias. Awareness is very important because many a times it is unintentional bias because we are blinded to a lot of biases and because there is no awareness. So the awareness, I have this 5-year framework. One is awareness, which is 50% of job done if there is an awareness. Second is accept that we can be biased. And third is to agree to change, because that's where it gets stuck. Most of the places you see, or most of people stop at agree stage and then go into apply. It means you really made a commitment and you want to apply. Last is to accelerate. That's where the sustainable practice come into picture. So those are some of the things which I thought it will be useful.
Thank you, Chela, wonderful.
I'll add 3 more to this, probably something which is different from what already spoke about. At Log9, what we have looked at specifically is we have a setup which spans from R&D of cell technology to designing a product to making the product in our manufacturing unit. So specifically, my favorite stands in the manufacturing piece where we have been able to bring in a lot more inclusion from a social aspect. So our manufacturing hiring is very focused to ensure that we are able to grow the community as long as our startup also grows. So our inclusion practice ensures that we are hiring only from local communities in the neighborhood, which will help them provide a decent standard of living, policies which include healthcare, benefits, along with transportation, food, etc., etc. So that is one aspect where we have a certain ratio, which we say in a general shift, we are looking at women representation to be higher, so that we are also able to build more role models in their own community that can have more women come out and join our workforce. That's one. The second one, which is very generic and very overly accepted, but still not practiced, is the unconscious bias. So we ensure that everybody involved in the hiring process, right from the recruiters to the hiring managers, go through an unconscious bias sensitization as we get in. This includes looking at your job descriptions, when you talk about your organization, when we are introducing the founders, to something last round where we called it as a cultural assessment. So we have inclusion as one of our culture 9isms, one of our 9 values that we embark on. And this last conversation is either with a senior leader or a founder of the organization, where we have a conversation to talk about how important inclusion is to us. So this ensures that the candidate also relates to us on a similar grounds, believes in the same core value, and is able to assimilate sooner and be a part of the organization starting the initial day. The third one that I go back to my previous organization is about how do we bring more women in science. So everywhere we've always heard representation of women in colleges is less. When you go to women in tech, it becomes lesser. Women joining corporates, even lesser. So the whole idea was to bring in an initiative where we can go back and influence younger girls to be able to take science as a subject of choice. So this includes building curriculum, bringing them role models from organizations which are not only ours, but we come together as a group of organizations at larger corporates to be able to drive this initiative. We partnered with not-for-profit to be able to drive this. And it's a 6-month-long program that we are running, which talks about science, it talks about tech, it talks about research, and different job professions that girls after 11th and 12th can pursue if they were to opt for pharma, sciences, technology as a choice of subject. So these are the 3 that I really look back and feel proud. I know the benefits will eventually show up. It's like a sapling growing, and it takes time for it to sprout as well. But these are some baby steps taken in that direction.
Wonderful, Amulya. Saritaji, some of the best practices in your medical college and hospitals.
The best practice, yes, of course, focusing on the percentage of female workers. But something differently here we are focusing as a group of institute as the socio-economical composition or inclusion. In our institute, what we are practicing, at least 1 to 2% of seats in terms of paramedical courses, pharmacy, nursing and all. We always interact with our housekeeping staffs or security staffs, and anybody approaching our academic session for any support. So we always focus on including them as our students so that they can grow. And very recently also, one of, this transport driver's son, we included him in MBBS also, supporting, in terms of making the EMIs, easy EMIs and other things. So as institute, we are focusing on more about that. And apart from that, right now we have started very recently to have this inclusion of physical disabled people. We are having our radiologist who actually somehow specially able. I'm sorry, I used the word physically disabled. So right now, my focus is also because I'm finding many talented people, though are specially disabled. So right now, they can work from home. Post-pandemic, this culture. So that is what we are practicing, and we are getting, all reporting and everything in terms of CT scan, MRI and all from those radiologists. And in future also, as head HR, will be focusing on that. And second thing, because we are dealing with all young generations. We can say the millennials and this breeze to generation Z. So we are trying to make them very active in social work. Because all these students are right now very much interested. Earlier also one panelist discussed about this, how they can contribute to society as a whole. So right now we are focusing on that, we are getting benefit out of that. And very soon we'll be definitely coming up with structured approach of more and more inclusions.
Thank you, Sarita ji. Rupali.
When you're the fourth on the panel, pretty much everything is gone. Right. Having said that, some of the pointers which were already made, that making your JD gender bias is extremely important, right? We consciously monitor the ratio, and when it comes to the recruiter, so now we are talking about talent acquisition. When it comes to the recruiter, he's your last mile connectivity, kind of a Chitragupta to the organization, also a branding personnel. So it's extremely important that your recruiter is ready for that kind of a hiring. I feel we, as, and many of us are HRs, the biggest problem we have is on a KRA, we write about turnaround time. For a recruiter, turnaround time is extremely important, and closing, where we make two mistakes, right? One is closing the position, one is how you close the position. When you give the equal weightage to both DI as well as TAT, that is where your hiring becomes important. Another thing is, typically we as HRs or talent acquisition personnel come under the pressure of the hiring manager to close the position early. So we encourage our recruiters to ask the question, probe in. A typical answer we get is, not a right culture fit. Have you ever tried to probe into those questions, probe in further to find out what do you mean by culture fit? The one message that we drive to our recruiters is sameness is not diversity. Because typically as a hiring manager who is also trained in DEI, but typically when we select person for the person who is similar to me so that I can run my team happily, and that is where the issue comes. Tech is today facing the problem because there is not enough diversity of women as well as different sex. And here we are talking about diversity from social economic criteria also. So one of the practices which mentioned by Sarita, we also do that, we do promote our blue collar staff to, their kids to apply for the positions within the center. So we have actually people from the kids of these staffs working with us, and we do give them a preference because it's extremely important that generation over generation we make the changes in this kind of hiring, right? And these are few of the examples I would say, but there are multiple today. I must say after a DEI, we moved from 45% women to today at 68%, and very proud to say that whenever we look at internal elevation, we look at those women in the leadership position, 48% of our mid and senior level management, of course not in the boardroom still we have few, but mid to senior level management we have 48% representation of women over there, and I think that itself was an achievement. Of course not a total conscious effort, but at the same time we realize there is a huge difference in the success, because we find women to be more sincere when it comes to delivering, and we are working very hard on getting them educated more and more on financial domain, which helps them to be the P&L leaders.
Thank you. So now actually I'll share one of my experience and I'll take the final question with the panelist. There is a one process which I implemented on DEI is Gender Equality International European Standard. This is a world-class standard where most of the European companies implemented. In India, it's very primary level. Not just gender equality, gender diversity is not enough. There are many economic diversity, language diversity, ethnic diversity, and demographic diversity. Does your organization is bringing cognitive diversity? This kind of diversity if you are going to bring. So what is the advantage you are going to get is more teamwork, more collaboration. Diverse thinking actually is going to bring more of converged talent, and that's how you can drive the business and performance. So one of the organization where I worked, we have certified for GCs, and that's where we have actually retained a lot of good talent. We promoted even to other countries, and that's where, as she said, so diversity, equity, inclusion is not just the burden to the organization, it's going to make the profit and performance to the organization. That's the reality. So we need to understand consciously we have to move and it should become our unconscious effort. We should think about DEI. That's where the lot of good talent we can work on. So I want a quick 1 minute answer from each one of you, because people are waiting between you and me and lunch. So one quick answer is how this economic and other diversities we can fix on so that real diversity can bring into the organization, real talent can boom and drive the business and performance.
I think my fellow speakers have already spoke about different types of diversity, so I don't want to preach that. You know it, there are many diversity, and one has to choose which diversity you want to focus, because you can't do everything, right? So it should not be for the sake of doing it, it should not be a number or a quota system, so we should come out of that. It should be a real, genuine feeling of inclusion. So I will leave it with like 5 A's. I said there are 4 I's. Intent to impact. In between there are 2 I's. Intent should be inclusion. So that's why we should do diversity, equity, inclusion, right? So if intent is not inclusion, then diversity won't happen. And interest should be on diversity. So if you want an inclusion, then you need diversity. I was just talking to among us, that if you're all same color, same region, same religion, then there is no need of inclusion. We are all same, right? So interest should be diversity, and importance should be equity. Because you can't have diversity and inclusion, but there is no equity there. And the impact will be belongingness. Because the belongingness leaves the legacy for an organization. Right? Belongingness should be an outcome of DEI. Because that's what Rupali also was touching upon. The belongingness leads, I'll tell you, if you're HR, from HR function, great level of engagement and retention possibilities are there in DI. Like 3 P's, the 4th one for us is retention and engagement. And enough research is there. So I think that's where I'll leave with 4 I's.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe I'll summarize his 4 I's in another 2 lines. For me, I'm a very firm believer to say strength lies in differences and not in similarities, right? And the ability to be able to accept every individual's uniqueness is what will differentiate one team from other team, one organization from other organization. So we got to move out and prioritize to say what is important for us, at what level the organization is, and where do you want the organization to head to. And it's also a function of the workforce mix that you have, the business priorities lined up, and the kind of markets you operate in. If you're going to try all new combinations, then I think this serves as a very fundamental principle to say every individual walking into the organization is accepted for their uniqueness, be it in terms of personality, be it in terms of talent, their work style, or the way they communicate. So if we're able to do this, the world will just be a very ideal place, hopefully soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Amulya.
What I'll say to summarize, yes, for inclusion, definitely. Recently, I got a stats. In my senior doctors population, I'm having only 25% of attachment of females. And in junior kind, or only grads, there is 30%. So yes, we have to focus on again the female education part. And if we'll be very broad and not biased and not considering history repeatedly, being broad about minority, including minority in our recruitments. And then again, to have that humanity to consider the specially able people. So all these approaches definitely, make us get a very talented pool of employees with us, which will definitely add to the productivity of organization, as well as, brainstorming ideas from different culture, and which will definitely help ultimately each to grow. So this is how we should
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Thank you, Sarita.
I'll make it a little quick for you. Okay. Two aspects that we haven't touched upon are the DI related complaints. Typically it is taken as a part of conversation. We should not take it just as a part of conversation, because these are genuine complaints, whether women or socially, economically challenged people, they all face these complaints. And we as HR, and believe me, being on this panel is extremely difficult because we all have those unconscious biases, right? So not taking those complaints lightly is extremely important. Celebrating those managers who are hiring from diverse portfolios is extremely important. And I see a new challenge now after implementing DEI is a reverse discrimination that comes at our face, that just because someone is a woman, so it's extremely important as a recruitment team, we not only look at only acquisition, also look at the retention that they are over there. And especially our joining announcement, if they talk about the competence the lady or a person brings to the table more and convinces it, we may face little less of a problem. So I would like to conclude with his 4 words, that is intent, impact, interest, and of course India. We ourselves, all the panel members are from Dozai, India, and we celebrate our culture. Make sure that not only the popular celebrations happen, those specific celebrations which belong to those areas also are celebrated and people are aware of it. That might help us include better.
Thank you, panelists. With one recent experience, G20, Modi was heading, and we were celebrating differences. Today, actually, Modi or India is becoming global leader. The reason is how we celebrate the diversity across the country. Different, every 15 to 20 kilometers, we have different dialects within one language only. And within Hindi only, there may be 10 to 20 languages. There may be, within Telugu, there are 5 to 7 dialects. Within Kannada, there may be 5 to 10 dialects. So this is the kind of diversity we bring in. But unconsciously, we were, as she said, we bias towards our own similarities. So we have to celebrate our differences, work together, grow together, perform to the higher level. That's what actually G20, when Modi and India is leading the world towards the sustainability. Because DEI is not just for that. Pandian was mentioning that next agenda for HR people is going to be there in boardroom by 2025. HR people, most of the companies, HR directors is going to be in the boards. So where unless you don't drive DEI, you can't enable ESG. That's where the ESG is the real part of the HR responsibilities. So that's where company law is also changed. There is a lot more thing is going to happen. So DEI is a must and ESG is our destination. So that's where I thank my panelists for their wonderful insight. I thank all the attendees with a lot of patience. You enjoyed the session. Thank you very much. Any questions is there? Open for 1 minute. Thank you.